Let's check here. All right, guys. Hey, I hope everybody is doing well. We should be live on all three pages, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Got a special treat for you today. I'm happy to introduce not only a great colleague but a good friend of mine, Boone Zavik from Immuno Labs. We are going to get into all the myths and things like that when it comes to food allergy testing, food sensitivity, IgG testing. We're going to kind of tackle it from the clinical side and the scientific side. And let me get him in here right now. So, hey, Boone, welcome.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Absolutely. So I'm super pumped to dive into this stuff today. As we were talking last week, there seems to be a lot of things surrounding the idea of food allergies. And as you know, as I know, we've been doing this partnership with Immuno Labs for well over 9 years now. And from a clinical standpoint, we 100% believe in the immune response when it comes to food allergies. But I wanted to just kind of bring you on, get the scientific side with your labs and how you guys are different, and just dive into that. So first things first, why don't you tell us who you are, who Immuno Labs is, how it got started, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am now the CEO of Immuno Laboratories, but I am not the founder. It's actually my father, Jeffrey, who created Immuno Labs. And, like any entrepreneur, he kind of created trying to scratch his own niche, right? He had his own kind of health issues and digestive upsets and just he wasn't getting the answer he wanted as far as like what was causing this. As a matter of fact, he went to a specialist and they did a whole GI inspection on him. And then, this is back in the day when doctors' offices, or rather a lot of offices, had that kind of top air vent. So the air vent was open. My father had finished, the whole inspection. He's waiting, in the kind of hallway for the specialist to talk to his primary care physician, and he overhears what they're talking about. And essentially what the doctor said is, there's nothing wrong with Jeffrey. He's probably just all in his head, and he should be prescribed some Valium. So the solution at that time was to essentially tranquilize my father and to just have him realize it's all in his head. Nothing's wrong and nothing needs to be done. When my father, heard that, and then of course later got, saw the prescription slip, he figured there has to be another way. Just like the wellness way, he decided he's going to think differently, right?
Yeah.
So he went on his whole journey of doing all kinds of different diets. I forget the exact timeline of this. This is probably like mid 60s or so. So he's doing, macrobiotic diet, hardcore vegan diet. Like he was trying all kinds of different things to just figure out like, what is it that is going on with me and how can I start feeling better? And his first, idea of where to go was diet because it was in his digestive system, right? He would get upset stomachs, cramps, all these, bloating, all these issues. And he figured it must be something I'm eating. So through a very long journey, he then started to realize that some food felt okay, other food did not feel okay. Yet he would see that some people would do really well on one diet and other people did really well on a completely different diet. So he figured something was missing. So at the time he was working there's a whole crazy long story about my dad and the multiple lives he's lived. But in this chapter of his life, he was down in the Bahamas at a very innovative clinic where they were doing essentially like stem cell stuff before that was really, a thing. And they're using like, I think sheep embryos or, just something crazy and doing stem cell things. And he was he was the manager of that clinic, or the office manager, I guess. And people would come essentially pitch him ideas of what should be incorporated in this very innovative clinic. And he would say, yes or no, but he always kind of kept a file of what he thought were really great ideas. One of those ideas was this idea of food sensitivity testing, or more broadly, the idea that testing someone for certain food to find out if it's okay for them or not. So aside from the immediate allergy idea, it was just this notion that, you may not have an immediate allergy, right? Where you touch shellfish and have anaphylaxis or hives or, some, crazy swelling, but it may be there's some kind of low grade kind of inflammation going on. So he just thought that was very interesting given his own, life experiences. He kind of filed that away. Eventually he left the Bahamas, came back to America, which is a whole other crazy story. And then he decided to kind of start on his own thing. He put a couple irons in the fire, and the one that really took off as far as seeing great clinical results was this idea of the testing that we do today, which is finding out from someone's blood serum what kind of food is causing inflammation, removing that from someone's diet, and watching them get better. So that was back in, I think we officially, or rather my father officially created Immuno Labs back in 1978. So that puts us what now in 48 years of business.
Yeah.
And we've now conducted over 60 million tests across 88 countries, helping hundreds of thousands of people across the world. And I get the skepticism that I see out there of like, how can it be that broccoli's bad for me, or this isn't good? But I think what it comes down to is, back in the day that seemed crazy, but now we're getting this idea that personalized medicine is where it's at. Meaning, if you just take some broad, health advice, it really depends on what's going on in your health condition. So, broad strokes like, yeah, people should drink more water. But if you're telling that to a person that's already drinking a bunch of water, and like, oh man, I need to drink more. Well, now they're going to have an issue because now they're drinking way too much water. And then, it's the same for basically any advice. You don't know where someone is at. So to have some just real general idea of what they should do, that's leading a lot of people to having issues. And I think that's a great tell that you had to the show of, how healthy food is, hurting you, because I guess it comes down to like, what is healthy? But anyways, that's probably a whole other thing that we'll get into in a
Oh yeah,
minute.
no,
But
it's a great segue, and real quick, I want to touch on something you said at the very beginning, because your father in the late '60s, early '70s was going through this, and he literally had a doctor tell him, "You're fine."
yeah,
There, and when we
you need
translate,
value.
you need value.
Just
Um,
crazy.
when we translate that into clinical practice today, like myself and Dr. Jacqueline and Wellness Ways across the country are doing, that's what we still hear. So 50 some years later, we're
Yeah.
still hearing, "Hey, your labs are normal. Hey, you're fine. It's all in your head."
Oh yeah.
And people are constantly hearing this from practitioners that they trust. And it's interesting to me just to hear that trend has continued up until 2026. And so that's amazing that I'm just kind of shocked that's what he was told. And it's really unfortunate when it comes down to, people are seeking care, and they're just not getting it because, one, that opinion of their primary care physician or whatever. But two, which I know you and I talked about, that we'll get into here in a minute, of just, this opinion of a general practitioner that, when they went to school 30 years ago, they said food doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Food's not going to cause inflammation. Food's not going to, cause GI distress. It's not going to cause an immune reaction. But we know that in clinical practice, as well as what in your laboratory. So I have a full list of questions. I highly doubt we're going to get through all of them today, but
It's okay.
I've kind of prioritized kind of the top ones. So the first one is, you kind of already started going there, but can you explain what food sensitivities are and how they differ from food allergies or intolerances? And are there different types of food allergies?
Yeah. I think this is where the biggest confusion comes from, because there's kind of like two, I guess, main ideas of this. One is there's the allergists, the MDs or whatnot, but specializing on allergy, IgE reactions, the anaphylaxis, the hives, the dermatitis, things like that, the swelling, all of that. They're really focused on that. And then there's great content that's produced that's talking about, hey, this is what an immediate allergy is, this is what allergies are, and they're defining, what the word allergy is, which they're not wrong. But if you look at the taxonomy of the word, you have hypersensitivity or allergy. Underneath that are, I think it's either 4 or 5 different types of an allergic reaction, of hypersensitivity. One of those, of course, is the immediate IgE allergy. Another one is the delayed IgG reaction. And of course, there's several others, but that's where I think a lot of people's confusion comes from. So the kind of the three main words that you kind of hear out there, or rather terms, of course, immediate allergy or allergy. So there's environmental pollens in the air. My eyes get itchy. My throat gets scratchy. I may have some postnasal drip, or my kid goes out into the grass. They get rashes on their hands, maybe rashes around their mouth, or someone touches peanuts, shellfish, or eats that stuff and their throat closes up, they could have anaphylactic shock, right? So those are the things that we really are aware of because they happen instantly. They're terrifying because it happens so fast. I mean, we're talking minutes to maybe an hour. So that happens real quick. And that's what's on the top of most people's minds when they think about allergy. After that is intolerance. Intolerance is essentially you're lacking an enzyme to break down the food. So the number one intolerance that people are very well aware of is a milk intolerance or a dairy intolerance, right? Or rather lactose intolerance, because there's lactose and you're missing lactase that breaks it down. So for a lot of people, they have dairy, then they get bloated, gassy, diarrhea, because they don't have the enzyme in their body to break down the lactose. So those are the two big ones that most people are familiar with. And then when they are using those words with their traditional doctor, the doctor's like, oh, well, you don't have this or that issue because we did this test. It's not a problem. The final one that most physicians, don't really study much of because they take, zero classes in nutrition, exercise, all kinds of stuff. But, and that's the delayed sensitivities. And that's the IgG, G as in general, reactions. Those are a lot harder to find on your own. It's not impossible. I mean, you can journal and, take your, year or two and, be really, intense with your notes and your symptoms. And you could probably figure it out, or you can just simply get a test and start feeling better, right as your results come in. But what happens is at breakfast, you're going to eat eggs. Then in the afternoon, you start feeling a bit of a crash, or you feel a headache come on, or maybe you have a digestive issue, right? Everyone's symptom is a little bit different, but they're going to start having that chronic symptom come up. And then they look back and they go, well, everything I ate was healthy. I had the standard American breakfast. I had eggs, whole wheat toast, maybe orange juice, a cup of coffee with some milk. That's not unhealthy. Maybe even had a tomato with it, right? Like I did so well. And it's not about if you did it right or not. It's just finding out the personalized thing for you. And that's where it's harder to find out that delayed reaction, because from eating it to then feeling the reaction can be hours to potentially days. And that's where a lot of frustration comes from. And, like you're saying about the traditional medicine, like another, quick aside, isn't exactly related to food sensitivities, but just something with my wife. And then I guess just to give people a bigger perspective of, doctors aren't against you. They just don't understand this stuff. But for my wife, I know that she had issues with sleep apnea. Now, for those of you that don't know my wife, she's remarkably petite. She has a very small neck. And the reason I bring the neck up is because oftentimes if your neck is 16 inches or larger, round, such as my neck, you're highly likely to have sleep apnea. So for my wife, petite lady, small neck, she was telling the doctor, I'm having issues sleeping. And the doctor's first thing was, okay, how much Ambien do you want? She's like, Ambien?
Oh
I
my
don't want
gosh.
Ambien. Yeah, it's like I'm trying to figure out like what's going on with my sleep. Like I feel like I'm not sleeping well. My wife wasn't even snoring. So she would just stop breathing, right? Simple solution, funny enough, was going through I think it was like a more kind of holistic dentist, and they just gave her a mouth orthotic that changed her jaw position, completely, cured her of her sleep apnea.
Yeah, my
So
son's got one of those right now.
yeah,
So
yeah. So it's like
yeah.
I bring that up because it's not even like the final solution was like, oh, you need to put like a crystal by your bed, or you need to burn sage. Like I think people think that it's some crazy alternative thing that they need to do, but the reality is it may just be a very simple thing that a traditional doctor just isn't aware of, because vast majority of their schooling is about drugs and how it relates to symptoms. And that's, fine. Like we need things like that. We also need catastrophic care. Like if you have your arm cut off, essential oils aren't going to help you, right? You're going to bleed out, right? So it's just everything has its place. And to sit there and just thumb your nose like, oh, I don't know about this thing, or my doctor said it doesn't matter. They weren't educated on it, and that's okay. Go to like I don't go to my or let's see, I don't go to my health insurance provider asking them how I should work out, right? Because that's not their world.
Right.
They don't cover it. They don't talk about it. That's just not in their perspective. So to go to them and say, hey, what gym and exercise stuff do you cover on my health insurance? They'll say, none. We don't do that. But if you get in a car crash, we got your back, right? So people just need to expand their mind to all these other services that are out there, whether it's on something that can help them right now, or more importantly, I'd say, is something that can help them in the future. Because when you're feeling sick and tired and all these symptoms, that's the hardest time to make a change. Because not only do you need to make a change, which in and of itself is difficult, but now you need to make a change when you feel like crap. And now it's even harder. So the best time to do something is when you're feeling well, and do all the preventive things, stack stuff, towards your health goals, so you don't get to that point where you're like, oh man, like I've got IBS, I have headaches, I'm lethargic, and now you're telling me I need to go to the grocery store, I need to, make my own meals, I got to exercise, like, this is too much stuff, right? So, people need to start expanding their mind, breaking out of just traditional medicine. Because also, I was telling you this the other day, but the third leading cause of death in the United States is medical error, right? Number one is cardiovascular disease. Number two is cancer. And right under that is medical mistakes, or, mismanagement or whatnot. So it's not that the doctors aren't brilliant. It's just that there's a lot to be improved upon. And the best thing that you can do is stay ahead of it all. So you don't even have to worry about if your surgery equipment was properly sterilized, or if everyone washed their hands. You can instead just be on the forefront of it. And that's why I love what you guys do with the Wellness Ways. Not only are you helping people that are suffering right now, but then you're getting them to a point where they can continue to feel great long into their life. And I think that's what people miss. It's like you can smoke cigarettes, you can drink, you can do drugs, you can do all these things that aren't good for your health. And I think a lot of people think, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, this is so much fun. I don't care if I died 10 years earlier. But that's not what it's going to be. It's not going to be 10 years lights out. It's going to be, instead of living, to your 80s or 90s or beyond and living healthfully and fully, instead it's going to be around 50, 60. You're going to start having a chronic condition that's now medically managed, and you're going to stay alive, and it's going to suck. And I see that now. I mean, I'm almost 40, so I'm not, very old, but I have, older friends, parents of, friends that I see what's going on with them. And I also, for a little while, owned an assisted living facility, and you see what the end looks like. And it's not what I think most people picture, where they're like, oh, I'm going to be partying and dancing, and I'll dance so hard that I'll just, die. No, unfortunately, that's not the case.
Jump in and kind of park it here for a minute, because just going back to the difference between the reactions, the sensitivities. I mean, the biggest thing from a clinical standpoint is we have to understand that there's still reactions, right? Whether
Correct.
you're having an IgE, you eat some peanuts and that sends you to the hospital, or all the way down at the bottom, whatever, IgG, that's going to be a delayed reaction. There's still immune reactions. Your body's still reacting to a trigger or something that coming from food that's going to cause inflammation, cause bloating, cause all sorts of issues for up to 4 days later, you said.
Yeah.
I think the big thing that I know here specifically in our clinic is, when we're interacting with patients and we're talking to them about, basically their questions of like, hey, is this a valid test? Is my food really harming my system?
Yeah.
And what is the efficacy of, the research and everything like that? We always like to go back to, really the medical system, and you kind of alluded to it, is they don't have a treatment for IgG, right? So
Correct.
if
Well,
you
it's
if
just
you
food
have
avoidance. Yeah, it's just diet.
right,
It's dietary and lifestyle change.
right,
And,
so they don't
and
they don't have a medication to give you, they don't have a shot to inject you with that's going to stop that reaction. But that's where they have one for an anaphylaxis reaction, an IgE,
correct.
where, hey, here's the EpiPen. They have a
And the
for
allergy shots for a long period of time
an
to
allergy
potentially
shot. So
desensitize you. Yeah.
I think that's mainstream speaking. I think that's why a lot of traditional medical doctors, just kind of push the the idea of IgG testing to the side. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it comes down to influence. You look at a lot of different studies, you see who funded the studies, you see what, product was being tested, and it's quite revealing of, what's going on towards what conclusion was made. But
Yeah.
yes, when we're looking at someone's health, essentially the holy grail of all disease is inflammation. That's how it begins. So if you're eating foods that are causing essentially, I would say, an unnecessary inflammatory response, and I say unnecessary because you could not eat that particular food and instead eat a different food. So, instead of having, broccoli, you have cauliflower, or instead of broccoli, it's Brussels sprouts, whatever it is. But it's just there's still options. One, once you realize causes inflammation, don't eat that food. Instead, eat this food and still feel good.
Right.
And that's the solution. So, yeah, it all still matters. And the cliche that I think about when it comes to, sensitivities and allergy and whatnot is the straw that broke the camel's back, right? So you start eating some inflammatory foods for your body. Now you're not feeling as well, right? You're not performing as well. Now maybe your sleep is suffering, right? So now you're not exercising. And now you're starting to gain, weight. And now you aren't, having, the best day. So you're getting more stress. So all this starts cascading where, years later, now you're finding yourself on a buffet of prescriptions, wondering, what is going on? Like, how did I get here? And it could have just been as simple as, let's get your diet where it needs to be. Let's get your activity where it needs to be. Let's make sure you have the proper nutrition that you need to have. And now you can, live a healthy and enjoyable life. But, to not get tested and know what's going on in your body and instead just kind of like, shoot in the dark of like what's going to work or not, I just think's, crazy. Like, why wouldn't you get tested? Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm a consumer of this stuff as well. Like, I realize I'm biased, right? I have the lab. I'm going to promote food sensitivity testing. I get it. And I'm out there buying this stuff too. I do the stool tests. I do the nutrient tests. I do the crazy genomic testing stuff. Like, I love all of these things because I want to know what I need. I don't want to know what Billy needs or Jane or Susan or what worked for them. I want to know what works for me, right? I'll take in the information of what these people say work great, but ultimately, if there's a way I can get tested to know, yeah, this is going to make a difference, then it's worth it. Otherwise, you're just shooting in the dark, wasting time and money, and then not feeling better. And
Yep.
I guess the last thing I'll kind of relate to that in the testing on the food side is I feel a lot of people are searching for that magic thing, right? What's that supplement? Ooh, NAD or methylene blue. Now, I'm not saying that stuff's bad, but it's just as people reach for that and then they're eating a crap diet, it's like,
Yep.
what are you thinking? It's like if you're causing all this inflammation, you don't need, a bigger bucket to bail the water out. Instead, let's just stop that unnecessary inflammation. And then all these other things are going to work so much better. And maybe you don't even need those certain things. But if you're, a ship with all these holes and you're sinking and your solution is, I just need a really good water pump to get this water out, it's probably going to be a lot more effective to just simply plug the holes and then start, start rebuilding a better ship.
Yeah. That's a good segue into just a very basic question of, what are the top 3 to 5 symptoms of food allergies? Because, as we titled this podcast, your healthy food may be destroying your health, right? So,
Yeah.
I know personally for me, I've ended up with lettuce and kale and tomato and blueberries and things like that on my food allergy list over the past 9 years. Those are all health food, right?
Yeah.
You brought up eggs even, and I love that conversation too, because you can go look at all these peer reviewed studies on eggs and how they are extremely healthy for you, right? So then you do that, and you're like, yeah, eggs are healthy. I'm going to eat 4 eggs a day. Great. Well, then you come and see somebody like me. We test your food allergies, and there it is: egg whites, egg yolks, and they're
Yeah.
going, hey, this is a health food. This study said so. So let's kind of wrap that piece into, what are some of the symptoms of actually having some of these reactions?
Yeah. The biggest broad thing that I would say is chronic. So if someone is experiencing a symptom regularly, more than likely there's going to be a relationship with food. All right. That's extremely general. More specific, digestive issues, IBS, diarrhea, bloating, constipation. And I realize the conflict, constipation, diarrhea, listen, depends on the person of how that's going to settle out. But digestive issues, that's a huge one because I mean, you're putting the food in, it's going through, right? You're having leaky gut, your intestines are inflamed. So, that's going to be a huge one. The other big area is going to be skin related issues. So if you're an individual that has a lot of problems with acne, eczema, even psoriasis, we've had great results. Um, those would be the big ones on the skin. The other one is joint pain. We have a lot of clients that come in and they have various joint pain issues. It could be, it won't necessarily be that we can, reverse arthritis or anything. We can help, lessen those symptoms. But yeah, just joint pain in general.
Yeah.
And then the other two big areas is going to be around like mind stuff, meaning headaches, brain fog, which I guess isn't so much mind, but then fatigue, lethargy, energy. And then the last kind of big zone is going to be, yeah, I guess it's back to that thing I was already mentioning, the energy as far as lethargy, poor sleep, things of that nature, even hyperactivity as well, can be a big one. So so I know that there's a whole lot of symptoms. What it really comes down to is what's that chronic issue that you as the person listening to this are suffering from. If you're like, yeah, I always have these digestive issues that I don't know why I have them, but it's like regularly I'm having them, potentially that could be triggered by food sensitivity. You have various, skin issues. Maybe it's eczema. Maybe it's, hives, acne. Potentially that's going to be something as well that could be food sensitivity related. Acne, probably maybe more so on the hormone side, but yeah, it's just looking at that chronic issue. And then of course, weight loss. Because when we're talking about diet, if you're having a hard time, losing weight or water retention, that can always be related to food sensitivities because what your body is doing, especially on water retention, is just trying to help with the inflammation by storing this water to then deal with the inflammation. And what we find, because we've worked with athletes who are like already, peak performers, doing great and doing a lot of things right, as we get them on a food sensitivity test, they experience three main things. One, water retention is reduced. Second, they recover a lot faster. And third, they have an increase in energy. So that's from someone that's already doing well. For those individuals that appear to be doing well, but have various chronic issues, that's where we can then help resolve some of those like undiagnosed issues as far as like what's causing their gastrointestinal distress. And they're like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the eggs they're eating. Maybe it's the whey protein that they're having. Or like you said, maybe it can be something healthy. Like for myself, I know beans, regularly come up as reactive. And when I eat beans, yeah, my stomach doesn't do as well with them.
Yeah. So a little bit of a follow-up to this, clinically, the inflammation reduction, like you brought up joint pain.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally had a patient on Monday that, that he's like, I could not lift my arm above my shoulder, right? And this isn't a, miraculous thing that happened. What we did is we worked to reduce the inflammation and inflammation in the joints, right? Then things
Yeah.
start happening. But the other, I would say, from a clinical standpoint, misconception that I hear sometimes is, you know, are these food allergies that, if I were to come get tested, whether it's a wellness way clinic or directly through you guys, are these just foods that I eat the majority of the time?
Yeah, yeah, no, that one's an interesting critique. And I mean, all I can say is that from the research that we have done, there's two things. One is oftentimes it will be food that you're regularly eating because you are regularly feeling the symptom, right? I mean, it's almost like a catch 22. It's like if we're to say the things that you're reactive to are foods you're commonly eating, and that's why you're having these IBS symptoms, daily. And then it's like, okay. On the flip side, if we tested you and I said, you know what, these foods you've never eaten in your entire life, but they're the reason that you're reactive, you'd be like, that doesn't make any sense. So it's a bit of a rock in a hard place when people are critiquing that 'cause it's like, yeah, of course it's going to be the foods that you're eating because you're having these symptoms regularly. Like just common sense corner is going to make sense. Anecdotally, what I can say for at least myself, because I don't always have all the patient information. I just am seeing the data of the results. But what I can say for myself is for vast majority of my life, like let's see, if I'm almost 40, it's probably been like 30 years. I've probably had like 4 eggs or more every single day, and like straight eggs. And I used to live in North Carolina. We had like a chicken coop. So I mean, I mean, I hate to boast, but we had so many eggs I throw them against the tree, right? Which was a fun memory when everyone was like complaining about the price of eggs. But I was eating eggs all the time. Like we had an abundance of eggs, and I'm bringing this up because that's one of our top 10 most reactive foods is eggs. For me, I've never been reactive to eggs. I've never had a strong reaction to them. So it isn't just because you eat this food all the time that it comes up reactive, because that isn't the case for me. But when I look at my results, it is foods that I'm eating. It may not be every single food that I'm regularly eating, but it's foods I consume. And I think that only makes sense because how else are we going to be correlating, your symptom to these various foods? It's something that's in your diet. And then once you just avoid the food, you choose a different food, and then you start feeling better.
I see. I know, like, I would say for myself, I'm on the opposite end. So I've never touched cod in my life, but it's
Yeah.
been on my food allergy list for 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. I don't eat fish. I don't take supplements that are cod. So I think that's kind of where those questions start to come up of
Yeah.
like, okay, so how does that happen? And really we're measuring that protein passing through the gut barrier into the bloodstream that the immune system's reacting to. So what is, like, real quick, like, is there something that you could pull from that research that would explain the opposite ends of that spectrum? You know what
Let's
I'm
see.
saying? Like, foods that I'm eating, yeah, they may show up, they may not show up, but also foods that I would never ever touch are also going to show up. And
Yeah.
if you can't, that's okay. I mean, I know there's a
Yeah,
lot of
that's where I
research
don't
out there.
have as much of the science on that. What I can say, at least on a reactivity and relating to symptoms, is that aside from the research that we've done ourselves in-house, and then the research that we've conducted with universities that will, like, for example, we had 3 studies. One was irritable bowel syndrome, one was headaches and migraines, and one was weight loss. And then we had various foods, that we noted in the study, or rather, the university noted in the study of, here were the most common foods that all these people had that they were reactive to. When we look at other studies that were conducted by other people and weren't, conducted directly on our laboratory and testing, they have the similar correlation. So for IBS, it's well known that you should, be on like what's it called, the FODMAP diet, and that's various recommendations to avoid certain foods that may be triggering more of your IBS. So there is a lot of commonalities of various symptoms and what foods those people need to avoid. When it comes to foods that you're reactive to that you don't commonly eat, those are probably ones that just your body just has an issue with. So your body, essentially what we're measuring is we're measuring when we put let's see, I'm trying to paint a proper picture. Okay, people are familiar with the UFC. So there's an octagon, right? Now this is, of course, this is not super scientific, but just for the visual. Assume that there's an octagon, right? In this octagon, we're putting in a specific food, and then we're putting in your immune system, and then we're ringing the bell and seeing what happens. When the foods come together and shake hands and get along, that's fine, non-reactive food. When your immune system starts punching the food in the face as hard as it can, that is now a reactive food. That's an inflammatory food. That's something that you should avoid. So
I'm gonna
why is
start
it
using that. That's a great example. That is
yeah,
such a
just to
practical
picture it. I
example.
mean, of course, that's not at all what's actually happening in the testing, but if I was to explain what really happens, it doesn't sound nearly as fun. So, but it's just a good visual of an
So
idea.
why do you think eggs are such a, in that top 10 reactive food? Is there any
That's a great
research or
question.
validity behind that?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure why eggs come up as so reactive because it is thought to be like a complete food with the protein and cholesterol and fat and whatnot. So I mean, why some of these foods come up, I'm not certain, but we just regularly see it. The only thing I can think of is maybe the abundance of how they're consumed, and then as you're having issues in your intestinal wall, and having that leaky gut, that hypersensitivity, and since you're ingesting those foods too, now they're getting into your bloodstream and your immune system's tagging them as a problem as well. So it could just be that, yes, it's part of it is that you are eating this food and you're triggering then this inflammation in your gut, and therefore your immune system is tagging this as it's a problem food.
Yeah, I have heard, I haven't researched it myself, but I have heard that eggs are such a prevalent issue because they're used as a part of the growth serum when it comes to vaccines.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
so when you're getting that, and like I said, I haven't done the research on this, but when you're getting that injected and causing that immune response, that might be part of it.
Could be. Yeah, it could be a
So,
historical kind of tagging that your body has of like, this is a problem
yep.
because last time we had this, or early on when we had this, is when we're also, getting, some, virus or some other thing with us to, then, build up this immunity or whatnot. So yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's move on. So, what makes Immunolab's food sensitivity testing different from other testing labs out there that are on the market?
Yeah. Um, I mean, one of the most obvious factors is our longevity. I don't think there's any other laboratory that's been around as long as us. We've been around now 48 years. I think we were founded in May, so I guess technically it's still 47, but for easy math, it's 48. Aside from that, and with that longevity comes many things. So I don't say the longevity just be like, oh, we've been around a while, so just trust us. But it's that since we have been around for so long, we see the trends. Like we have so many quality controls in place. I think the last time I counted, it's like 80 or 90 different quality controls in place to help us know when something seems off. So if we got a new batch of testing material in, we do a side by side comparison to make sure, all right, this is what we have been getting. Is this new batch looking the same way as it should? Are we getting a correlation of results? Are the results kind of the same thing? And then that's one thing that we do. The other thing that sorry, and just to bring it back, the reason that historical data matters is because then if we start to notice that there's a high increase in certain reactivity, then we can start looking back and going, okay, what changed? Why would this be? Is it just coincidence that we have a population of specimens coming in that for whatever reason are more reactive to cabbage than the averages we've had in the past? But we have a lot of checks in place now to kind of map that out and make sure that we're producing clinically relevant results. Aside from that, we choose to use FDA approved antigens. Now, whatever you think of the FDA, the point is we're using antigens that are pure. So we're not using an antigen that has various contaminants or some random, powder, or even something that's been made, in-house. We're purchasing antigens from laboratories that are ensuring that what we are getting is not only pure apple, but it's apple that people are eating and not some weird variety or some weird synthetic apple. So we're getting real antigens that are going to be kind of the same type of food that your body would be exposed to as you go out into the world and eat. And I'd probably say the third biggest thing that makes us different from a lot of other laboratories is our money back guarantee. So when it comes to our food sensitivity testing, we guarantee that when you get your test results for the blood print test and you take action on those results, that you're going to feel better. And we leave it pretty loosey goosey with meaning terms like that. Like we're not going to some crazy quantitative thing. We just say, we believe that our testing is going to work and we are going to guarantee that you'll feel better. If you don't feel better, you have 90 days to let us know, and then we'll refund the money. There's no other laboratory in the entire world, as far as I know. I mean, I know there's changes every day, but as far as I know, there's no other laboratory in the entire world that offers 100% money back guarantee that's based on clinical outcomes.
Yeah. But well, and part of that I would assume goes into just the amount of historical data you've had for 48
Yeah.
years. And I mean, that's incredible on its own.
Yeah.
Part
I
of
mean, we're very confident in it. And that also comes back to the idea of like, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? I don't want the person to be worried about that. I want them to know that this is going to work or I'm going to get my money back. Because like I said, when I'm, not promoting our, laboratory and testing, I'm out in the world trying stuff. And I wish that a lot of other things had a guarantee, but unfortunately they don't. So I find stuff that works, I find stuff that doesn't work, but at least you can, rest assured knowing, okay, I'm going to try this testing. I hear the skeptical things out there. I'm going to give it a shot for myself. See if you feel better. I guarantee you will. I'm financially on the line, so if it doesn't work, then I'm going to give you that money back. And I mean, I know that you have the guarantee, but there's not many hoops here. I mean, the main thing is we just want to have an idea of what you've been eating. The main reason for that is not to then invalidate you and not give you your money back, but to just help you. Like, we've honestly had someone that was super reactive to tomatoes. They were not feeling better, and we're like, can we just see like your food thing? Like, just give us an idea of what happened here. And they were still eating a lot of Italian food and having ketchup. And we're like, you realize those have tomatoes, right? And they're like, oh my God, I didn't think about that. So then we just extended his guarantee for another 90 days and just said, let's give this another shot. And they started feeling better. So my belief is when people invest in our testing, they actually want to feel better. And if for some reason it didn't work, the last thing I want you to be is, not feeling well and, out money that didn't help you. I want you to, be able to reinvest in the clinician that you're working with to find the thing that's going to work for you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Is part of the quality control that you guys do, part of that is, or correct me if I'm wrong, is the reproducibility on
Oh
a
yeah.
specimen, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of also unheard of in this field of food allergy and sensitivity testing, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, oh man, I'm probably gonna get this wrong. So I may get the standard wrong, but the governing body for laboratories is called CLIA, CLIA. And there's some other credentials and certifications you can have, but base level, if you're in America, you have to have a CLIA certification or licensure or something else similar that qualifies for that. And their regulation, if I remember correctly, and like I said, I'm probably going to get wrong because I remember I remember when I learned it, I was like, I can't believe this is what it is. But you have to do reproducibility checks. I think it was like once every 6 months. If it wasn't once every 6 months, it's like once every month. And what we do, because we realize reproducibility, matters, right? Like, you want to know that your reactive foods are the ones that are going to make a difference for you. We do splits every single week because we want to make sure that everything is working out as we expected. And if for any reason something is off, then we're then going back and going, okay, what was different? What happened? Why would this be, this way? Why isn't this looking, the way it should look? So we're doing a lot to be on the forefront of ensuring, outcomes to ensure that you feel better. Because I mean, we're asking you to change your diet. And I know that may just sound like, oh, what's the big deal? Broccoli versus cauliflower. But no, I mean, if I'm going to ask you to change your grocery shopping, change your meals, I want you to know that it's going to work and that you're actually going to feel better, and that's the right result.
Let's actually go into the word diet. So I'll give you a little bit of a base foundation here from our perspective. So, when we sit down with patients and we say, "Hey, these are your food results," our recommendation is because it's an immune reaction, we're going to pull those foods out, right? If
Yeah.
it's red, it's dead. Whether it's 10 or whether it's 37, we're going to pull those foods out to start to allow you to feel better, as you're saying, right? So we're going to basically stop that immune response.
Yeah, and real quick, what Paul's referring to is on the test results at the very top are your reactive foods. They are in red, red, stop, right? And then within your reactive foods, there's a range. 0 is non-reactive, +1, +2, +3, +4. Those are all different levels of reactivity. +4 is the highest reactivity, +1 is the lowest. But yes, if you're reactive, remove it from the diet. Okay, sorry, I just want to give a little baseline.
Oh, no, no, no. That's great. That's great. I should have had one to pull up, but and then below that we have the blue section, which is, the foods that were non-reactive, right?
Yeah.
So, in the terms of diet, we see all this thing on social media. We got carnivore, we got Whole 30, we got FODMAP, we got all of these things, and this test tells exactly the individual what they should and should not eat.
Yeah.
And so I don't even consider that a diet, honestly. Like, this is clinical specific testing for you.
Yeah.
But a lot of questions start coming up about it being restrictive. So what are your thoughts on, is this a restrictive diet? Is it, and
Um,
obviously I know with clinical experience that,
yeah.
yeah, you're, if you're feeling all the symptoms that you described earlier on in this, yeah, we want to remove those so that you can have that thriving, abundant, healthy life. And I guess the more important question is like, do you get these foods back? What is the, turnover time for if somebody takes a food allergy test, how long do they have to pull these foods out? Is it really restrictive?
Yeah. Um, Well, I mean, by definition, yeah, it is restrictive because there's certain things you're not going to eat. With that being said, if you're reactive to, let's just go crazy, and let's say you're reactive to 50 foods. Well, I mean, we can test up to 207. So there's a lot of foods that you would be able to eat, right? From that, you can also take foods that you are not reactive to. You can look at the food family, and they can have other foods that are in that family as well. So it may be that you are, I don't know, I should probably be smarter on my food families. So all right, I won't do an example of that. But the point is, yeah, I mean, it is going to be
You
restrictive.
actually
But
already brought it up, like beans, right?
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
you know,
legumes, yeah.
pinto,
So
yeah,
yeah, so
pinto, black
if you're
walnuts.
non-reactive to various legumes that we tested you on, and and you have no reaction to any legumes or beans that we tested you on, you can then look in the legume family and eat those other ones. And there's an abundance. I mean, there's chickpeas, black-eyed peas, kidney beans, navy beans, pinto beans. There's a lot. Um, so that can then help you expand those foods out more. Of course, work with your physician and their recommendations, because it may be that, hey, you have a certain health condition where you shouldn't have, this food family or this specific thing in that food family. But yes, by definition, it is going to be restrictive. But I've seen the critique of like, oh, this is going to cause people to have eating disorders. I, I do not think so. I think I think that would be a bigger issue, that is not going to be caused by someone getting a food sensitivity test and making improvements to their diet. It's the same way I'd say, are you going to have a nervous breakdown because you can't do drugs and you can't smoke cigarettes and you can't drink alcohol and you can't do all these things that we know are very bad for your health. It's just, I think that's silly. But yes, by definition, it is going to be restrictive because there's certain things you are not going to eat. But now into the bigger picture, these are things that you are not going to be able to eat for 90 days. At that point, you can either get retested to find out what things are still reactive or non-reactive, or you can slowly incorporate your lower inflammatory foods back into your diet and see if you're having a reaction, because you'll probably notice it. That's one of the reasons why our testing compliance is so high, because people will, like, what I try to tell people is 1 week, just 1 week, follow the diet, don't eat your reactive foods. And people go, okay, I can do anything for a week, right? 5 days, 7 days, not a big deal. And then I'm like, just after that, just try one of your highly reactive foods and just see what happens. And then they'll be like, yeah, I feel like crap. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. So it's a bit of the carrot and the stick. Carrot meaning when go through the hard nature of not having these certain reactive foods, you feel better, right? That's the carrot. The stick is that if you decide that you want to backslide or have one of the reactive foods, or you just do it by mistake, like the tomato person, then you get the stick, right? You feel that migraine come back, the digestive symptoms come back, right? It's that pain that returns, and therefore you go, ooh, I don't like that. Like I want to keep avoiding the food. That felt way better. So this isn't something that is with you for life. And I know that then becomes a critique in and of itself. They're like, oh, but the results change over time. Yeah. So does your weight, your cholesterol, your blood sugar, your hormones, like everything in
Partly,
your body
your
changes
immune
over
system,
time.
your
What?
immune system is going to change, right?
Yeah.
And that's the big thing is, your immune system, if I'm not mistaken, turns over every, 9 to 12 months. So if you're highly reactive, to certain foods, it may actually go beyond that 90 days to where we're starting to see actual changes. But that goes into different types of testing and supplementation like we do, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just to recap, yes, there's restriction, meaning you shouldn't have your reactive foods. Like that's kind of, a no-brainer, but it's not something that for the rest of your entire life you can never have this food. That is very unlikely. You'll more than likely be able to have some of those foods. But, just as Paul's saying, I've tested myself probably 20 or 30 times by now. And I know certain foods are kind of always there, and they're easier foods to avoid. Like I know cabbage is a big one. I think navy beans, and I usually just avoid beans in general. So I know that those two usually come up reactive, but they're not like hidden foods. Like no one's really hiding cabbage in something. So for me, this just foods I need to avoid. And if I do eat them, yeah, I mean, I don't feel as great. It's nothing massively different, but I know if I was to consistently be eating that food, I wouldn't feel as good. So it really becomes a choice. Do you want to call it a restrictive diet and not make any change and potentially still not feel great? Or would you like to change your diet for a bit, picture this as a food vacation. You're going to have a fun time trying new things, and you're going to start feeling better. I I think it's worth it, but I try to break stuff down to, just making it simple. It's like, whether something's right, wrong, just try it. Does it feel better to you? If it does, it's worth it. If it doesn't, well, then you can make a change. You don't have to stick with something for, the rest of your entire life.
Right. Yeah, we call it the BS test here. So when
Yeah.
somebody just, they avoid their food allergies for a certain amount of time and they're like, you know what, I'm gonna have me an egg today. And then they spend the next, 3 days in bed just keeled over because they don't feel great. That's the BS test. So
Yeah.
um well, great, man. We are coming up on an hour. Obviously, we got through some good questions, but is there any parting words that you want to cover, or anything that you feel like we didn't cover that you wanted to?
Yeah, the parting words, because I want to leave people as amped up as they can be on like what they can do in their health. And what I will just say is, and this is more collected through my own life experiences, seeing, my wife go, with various medical things to get stuff improved, seeing my in-laws do various things to improve their stuff. And what I find fascinating, and I've kind of just included in my mind, is for the person that's listening to this, I want you to realize you are your primary care physician. No one cares about your body and your health as much as you do. Okay. So you want to find people that are going to align with you, that are going to provide testing to find out what is going on in your body. Because to just take general advice, you're going to get the general result. And next time you're in a mall or some very populated area, look around. Is that the general result that you want? Because unfortunately, there's a lot of people that need to improve their health. When you realize that you are your own primary care physician and that you need to, be more aware, you need to try new things, you need to do the hard work, because at the end of the day, it is empowering to be healthy. You get to choose how you're going to feel. And that's a choice that you have to make every single day and multiple times a day. I know Paul makes those choices and they're hard. They're hard choices. It doesn't always feel great, but from, telling you about the assisted living world and seeing people at the end of their life, if there's one thing that those people unanimously would give, it would be just a couple more days or a couple more years or just a couple more moments of feeling good. And once that's gone, it's much harder to get back. So I know that sounds a little bleak, but all I'll say is today is the day. Make a choice, do something even tiny. Just, maybe you, I don't know, go for a walk after a meal. Maybe you drink another, glass of water because you realize you need more water, right? Maybe you eat more vegetables at your next meal. Whatever, make small choices, compound them over time. Work with someone like the Wellness Way, work with Paul and his wife, Jacqueline. They're here to help you. They're here to not just spout what they think is going to work. They're going to do testing. They're going to find out what your unique individual body needs. And that is going to give you the result that you want.
Yeah. All right, brother. Well, I appreciate it. Do you want to tell people where they can find you and Immuno Labs?
You can find us at the Wellness Way. No.
Yeah.
But
100% there.
yeah, no, you can look me up. What's my name? Boone Zavik, Z as in zebra, A, V as in Victor, IK. And then, of course, in the thing here is the company that I'm running, Immuno Labs. Yeah, find us. I mean, we're creating a lot more content on YouTube and Instagram. And yeah, I mean, I want to educate more people, because health feels complicated, but really, if you are doing the daily habits and you do them, basically for your life, you're going to have a much better life and you're going to feel a lot better as you age. So it's absolutely worth it, but you got to, you got to do the work.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys, for joining us. Boone, thank you for your time. And maybe we'll do this again sometime next time.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Paul.